19. They'll go to Jordan. They got him. Shot. 20-footer. Good. Good. The game is over.
Sometimes I dream that he is me. Got to see that's how I dream to be.
Poster.
I dream I move. I dream I groove. Like Mike. If I could be like Mike.
Most Valuable Player Award to Michael Jordan.
Sometimes I feel this dream is real.
The shots I make nobody else would take. I seem to soar.
Can hear the roar like Mike. If I could be like Mike.
Oh, what a move by Jordan.
If I could be like Mike. If I could be like Mike.
This is a special edition of NBA Showtime. Michael Jordan, A Champion's Journey. Here's your host, Hannah Storm.
The United Center in Chicago, where a half hour from now, the Chicago Bulls close out the regular season against their longtime rivals, the New York Knicks. The burning question in Chicago, are we about to witness the final regular season game in the magnificent career of Michael Jordan? Hi, everyone. Hannah Storm, along with John Sally and Peter Vesey, and we are looking forward to spending the next half hour talking about Michael Jordan.
We only got a half an hour to talk about Michael. This should be at least like, you know, a golf tournament. We have 4 days of MJ.
He would like that.
He would love it.
But this is the kind of homage that you pay somebody with the ability that he has to make millions of fans out of people who would not be into basketball if it weren't for his airness.
He certainly set a standard of excellence that even transcends his sport. And we'll talk about also tonight the game between the Knicks and the Bulls. That'll come a bit later on. Tonight's pregame is devoted to Michael Jordan. Despite all the talk that he might retire after this season, Jordan is still the best in the game and arguably the greatest ever. As he embarks on a quest for his 6th NBA title, we reflect on his remarkable career. We begin a champion's journey.
A 1-point lead for Georgetown. The tie, 18. Shot, Jordan. North Carolina has won the 1982 NCAA championship.
The Chicago Bulls pick Michael Jordan.
Through a quirk of fate, he fell to number 3, and we were there and able to take advantage of it. And I think you could see early the will to win, the incredible ability to raise his game when the game was on the line. And I think after a month's time in the season that we knew we had something special.
Michael Jordan came flying out of the sky. Here's Jordan in deep on Elo. Oh, yeah!
Look at the air, look at the hang time, look at the flying motion.
At the beginning, it was easy to play against the Chicago Bulls. Michael would get 40, he'd get 50, but everybody else would be standing around watching.
They double team now. Walton's come out to meet Jordan. What a great shot, and a basket and a foul.
We had, on the Boston Celtics, the best team that year. The first game, he comes in and he scores 49 points. And so we're sitting in the locker room, we waxed him. And we're sitting in the locker room after the game saying, well, he'll never do that again. He certainly didn't. He scored 63 the very next game.
Bird saves it, but Michael steals the ball. Jordan back to the rack. Whoa!
Fans have not realized that at the beginning of Michael's career, when his game was all about athleticism, when it was all about being an individual out there, he didn't win.
In coaching Michael early, I know the one thing that really used to bother him was, you know, the Pistons at that time, it was Isaiah and his group, and Larry had the Celtics, and Magic had the Lakers, and the supporting cast they had, and all Michael ever heard about in his career was, you don't make anybody around you better. You're great, but...
You knew you couldn't conquer him. You knew you couldn't beat him. However, the way we tried to attack their team was to break down everyone else mentally, to break down his supporting parts, to more or less leave him standing there alone.
When I first came 11 years ago, we were in this gym, and I said, you know, the coaches I had with the Knicks, Red Holzman, always said that a star makes his other players better players. And all of a sudden, their value and their abilities seemed to be magnified by his presence on the court. And Doug Collins, who was the head coach, said, go tell Michael that right now. Go tell him that right now.
The inbounds pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win! They win!
That was get the ball, Michael. Everybody get the out of the way. Go to the basket. My last year there in '89, when went into the Eastern Conference Finals before losing in Game 6 to the Pistons. All of a sudden, I think people really realized what this guy was all about, that he really was the epitome of winning.
We like the fact that we own the Central Division. We like the fact that he was the next Dr. J at that time, and he was going to be the heir apparent of the NBA, and we liked quieting it all down and making them shots.
Watch Michael and just take this shot. And as it splashes, he runs through, gets the motion, gets Michael.
He never would stop, you know, from start to finish. He would keep coming and coming and coming. And just when you think that he was wearing down physically and mentally, he would go to another level. He just had an engine, you know, just never stopped.
I know a little story. Isaiah was upset about it because he went home and saw his nephew wearing a Michael Jordan jersey. And he didn't like that because, Isaiah was all Chicago. He was Mr. Chicago. He put him on the map. And then Michael just came in and everybody forgot that he played there.
He kept it in bounds. Here it is again. Oh, yes!
I knew I was beat when I knew he had finally conquered me. We went to Chicago and they beat us, I think in '91, 2 games there, and we came back for Game 3 in Detroit. And I'll never forget it, we were in the 3rd quarter. He looked at me in such a way that, you know, the look that I used to have in my eyes, I now seen that look in his, and it scared the death out of me.
I was in Detroit, and I went to, between the games, I went to dinner one night with Michael. I went to dinner the next night with Isaiah. And it was like being between the 2 gladiators. And listening to Isaiah talk, he was like, you know, the king of the hill that realized that his kingdom was threatened.
I went out to dinner again that night with Ahmad, and I said, you know, I'm beat. You know, he's got us. And from that point on, you know, once he got on top, our mentality was the same. It's a matter of conquer and destroy. And once he got it, he's never stopped since.
And once the Bulls were able to get past their nemesis, the Pistons, the championships followed. It remains to be seen which team the Bulls will face in this year's playoffs, which begin next week. New Jersey and Washington are battling it out for the 8th and final spot in the East. The Wizards tonight are beating the Boston Celtics by 10 with about 5.5 minutes left to go in their home game. If Washington should win tonight, they also need losses by New Jersey and Orlando tomorrow to claim that final playoff spot in the East and the first-round matchup with Chicago. When we return, part 2 of Michael Jordan, A Champion's Journey. Our special edition of NBA Showtime continues right after these messages. Some of the most memorable moments in Michael Jordan's career have come against the Knicks.
Michael Jordan puts on a show.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks.
Michael Jordan and Xavier McDaniel having words.
Smith. 55 points by Michael Jordan. Jordan nearly fouled and the shot's gonna fall. Oh, man.
Now, if Jordan and the Bulls were to face the Knicks in this year's playoffs, it would have to come in the Eastern Conference Finals. Early in his career, there was a perception that Jordan was a great singular talent, but the question lingered, could he lead a team to an NBA title? In the decade of the 90s, that question has been answered in a resounding manner. We continue with a champion's journey.
This is what you live for, to play Michael Jordan in the finals.
You know, I thought I was the most competitive person that I ever knew until I met Michael.
3-on-2 for the Bulls. Michael on the drive, in for the right, for the jam. The Bulls blowing the Lakers out.
The thing about Michael is the fact that he could go 1 for 50 or 1 for 20, but that one shot may be the greatest move you've ever seen in your life.
The look away to Livingston. Jordan. Oh, a spectacular move. A spectacular move by Michael Jordan.
Man, if, you know, and that's what makes him special. That's what makes him Michael and everybody else down here.
And the Chicago Bulls have won their first ever NBA championship.
The first one was probably the most special because that was getting to that level, to become a real champion, and his father was there for that. And I think everyone after that is just to reinforce the fact that he is a champion.
Jordan against Drexler. See, this is what Michael lived for. He wanted this challenge. Part of being a champion and part of understanding the mental psyche of a champion is that you take that away from a person before he walks into the game. You make him concede before he steps on the court that not only are you gonna get beat, but it's about how bad I'm gonna beat you.
The one thing you understand about Michael is, like, if you ever do anything with him competitively, if you're fortunate enough to beat him, you're going to have to play again that very moment.
We went at it in Barcelona, I mean, at each other. We thought we could beat each other at everything, and we tried to. Free throw, jump shot, three-point, cards, checkers, anything. We wanted to beat each other so bad.
One night in Barcelona, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing. Big argument about who was the best, who was this, who was that. Magic was saying, hey, me and Larry brought this league to where it was. We're the stars, we're this and that and the other. He kept on talking. Finally, Larry Bird goes, Magic, shut up. We were, he is.
The Bulls trying to become only the third team in NBA history to pull off a three-peat.
10 seconds to go in the shot clock. 15 in the ball game. Michael will take it. He's fouled. He scored! Superman back in the building!
You don't want to lose to him because you have to listen to him. You know, one thing about Michael, he takes no prisoners. And if he beats you, he lets you know it, and he stomps you when you're down. So there's nothing worse than losing to him.
The Paxson going for the win. Here's Paxson to three. Paxson, yeah!
The Chicago Bulls have won 3 straight NBA championships.
When I lose the sense of motivation and the sense of to prove something as a basketball player, it's time for me to move away from the game of basketball.
Today, Michael Jordan at age 32 tries to accomplish what no one else truly has in team sports history.
And the season is over, my friends. The Magic win it.
When he came back and when he lost to Orlando and he made a big turnover, he said that really bothered him. So every day that summer, no matter what happened, 6 days a week, he was shooting the ball, lifting weights, shooting the ball, lifting weights. And he understood that that was the most important summer, since the summer, his arrival into the NBA.
After a 2-year absence, the Chicago Bulls have regained the NBA throne.
And, you know, there's been a lot of great athletes, but this man has won at the college level. He's won at the Olympic level. He's won now as a pro. He's tasted it all. and he still can't get enough of it.
We're down to 2, now to 1. Here's Jordan. Yes! It is all over. The Chicago Bulls have won at the buzzer.
You know, if you look at the finals, you go, okay, you got this team against that team, but they have Michael Jordan. He'll will this team to win. And that's what you have to beat. You don't have to beat the Bulls. You have to beat his will. And I don't think that at this point in his life that's possible for him to do.
Michael Jordan playing despite flu symptoms. Pippen making Hornacek. Here's Jordan. Yes. It looks like he's a boxer just hanging on along the ropes.
Basketball today wouldn't be where it's at, you know, if Michael Jordan hadn't come along, and he and only he, you know, could take it to that level.
What I want to tell fans is set your VCRs now, because once he goes, that's the only thing you're going to have is the memories and all the plays, all the joy that he gave us, because it won't be another one, that's for sure.
But at the very least, fans still have another title run by Michael Jordan to savor this season. The question, who will be the Bulls' first-round opponent? The Washington Wizards are doing their best to qualify for the 8th and final playoff spot in the East. They are about to wrap up their 4th straight win, beating the Boston Celtics at home, little under a minute, 110-93. They have won 4 straight without Rod Strickland, but for the Washington Wizards to make the playoffs, they must hope the Nets lose to Detroit tomorrow, and Orlando must lose to Charlotte in order for Washington to be able to play Michael Jordan and the Bulls in round 1. We'll have plenty more on Michael Jordan as we hear from Peter Vesey, John Sally, and our crew in Chicago. The Knicks and the Bulls tip off about 15 minutes away. Part of Michael Jordan's greatness lies in his durability. He has not missed a game in the last 3 seasons, and he's closing in on yet another scoring title. For more on that, we go to Bob Costas, Doug Collins, and Isaiah Thomas.
And Hannah, if Michael gets it, it will be his 10th scoring title, extending his own record. Wilt Chamberlain won 7 times. It would be by the smallest margin, though, of the 10 Michael has won. As of right now, he's averaging 28.6. Following a 43-point outburst last night against Dallas, Shaquille O'Neal is at 28.2. For the sake of argument, let's say that Michael is held reasonably in check tonight by the Knicks. If he scores 20, then Shaq could win the scoring title if he puts up 42 tomorrow at home against Utah. And here you see the other figures Shaq would need if Michael scores through 40 points. We'll assume, Zeke, that if Michael busts out with more than 40, that it's out of the question for Shaq. How important do you think this is to Michael, and to what lengths would he go to get it done?
Bob, we all know that Michael is a winner, and he loves a challenge, and this scoring title provides just that. Michael needs 28 points to get his average tonight. That would force Shaq to have to score 47. Michael wants to win the scoring title. We talked to Phil Jackson earlier. Phil told us that he'll see how Michael feels, and if Michael feels like he wants to put up more than 28 numbers, he'll let him do it, and it'll be a great way to end the regular season.
Now, tomorrow, when the Lakers play at home, they have to keep in mind they can't distort the game just to get Shaq's numbers for him, because if the Lakers win, coupled with a Seattle loss, then the Lakers win the Pacific.
Well, Bob, Shaq is a winner also. He does not have the championships as of yet, but his Laker team is in the hunt, and Shaq is capable of huge numbers. We have seen a 50-point high, 43 points last night, so we know he's capable of putting up big numbers. He has also been there before. The last game of the season in 1994, Shaq had 32. David Robinson came back with 71 to win the title. David Thompson posted 73. George Gervin got the last shot, 63. He won the title. The one advantage Shaquille has is he knows what Michael was going to do tonight, so he'll get the last shot tomorrow. He'll know exactly what he needs to win the title.
Knicks and Bulls tipping off in a few minutes. Right now, back to Hannah in New York.
Thank you, Bob. And there's certainly the potential for Michael Jordan to have a big game against the Knicks. He already has 2 40-point games against New York this season, both of them coming at Madison Square Garden. John Sally has a unique perspective on the subject of tonight. Michael Jordan, you were part of the Pistons teams that knocked Jordan's teams out of the Eastern Conference Finals, and also a teammate of his, winning a championship with the Bulls in 1996. What about those legendary off-the-court practice habits?
Well, like you said, we did knock him around, too. We knocked him more than just out of the playoff race. We hurt him a couple of times. But I remember, like, Michael would always get up at 8 o'clock in the morning with his trainer, and he lifts weights before everybody else. Probably when I was rolling over thinking about what I was going to have for breakfast, he was pushing up about 220 pounds. But one time we were practicing, we were going to have a scrimmage. Phil Jackson forced him not to practice. He had on canvas tennis shoes, which proves it's not the shoes. And he put Dennis Rodman, James Edwards, and myself on the same squad to scrimmage, and Michael tied up those canvases and said, I'm playing. And I literally saw Superman enter the building. He took off to dunk on me, and he just yelled, block this, big man. And I said, you know what? I called my mother and said, Ma, I just played and saw the greatest player ever. And she said, it took you this long to realize it. But I did.
And who won the scrimmage?
Well, the Pistons, you know. Anyway, Peter.
You know, John got the job here with us because he played with Michael and against him.
That's right.
That's right.
Hey,
this
everything
is true.
helps now.
You owe everything to this man.
I got you.
You covered Michael Jordan his whole career, had the privilege of doing so. What are some of your favorite memories?
Well, Hannah, like everybody else, I've stored up a number of memorable memories that watching him over the years. But the thing that stands out most in my mind is when I went down to Orlando when he was playing baseball. And all I could think of when I was watching him play right field and shag a fly every 3 or 4 innings and get up to bat 3 or 4 times and strike out was what a waste of talent. How deprived we were that year, and then the next year for most of it, not seeing the greatest talent in my estimation in basketball. But hold the weeping, Hannah. I think, or at least I suspect that we've got a few more memorable moves left in Michael during the playoffs.
Yes, the playoffs which begin next week. And who will his team face in the first round? Well, it's a final. Washington has beaten Boston 112-95. That doesn't mean the Wizards qualify for the 8th spot. Still need some help from the Nets and the Magic if both those teams lose tomorrow. Washington will play Michael Jordan and the Bulls. If not, it will be the New Jersey Nets. Now, before we send you to Chicago for the Bulls and the Knicks, one final look at some images of Michael Jordan through the years. We'll see you at halftime.
He's the Messiah in a red uniform with a bull on it.
Michael does things through the air.
Jordan's a different kind of cat.
I think that Michael has to be rated probably the greatest ever at what he can do.
He always lets you know that it gets down to the 4th quarter, we win, because I'm Michael Jordan. Pretty hard to argue with.
There's no next Michael Jordan.
Coming out smooth. I wanna be like Mike.